The term underrated has been used ad nauseum when it comes to describing UFC fighters and their rightful place in the company's rankings. The world is largely associated with fighters who don't get a ton of recognition despite their solid body of work. Top 5 contenders like Vicente Luque, Beneil Dariush, and Anthony Smith come to mind when the term is thrown around. Even a pound-for-pound entrant such as Alexander Volkanovski can be considered underrated, given the perceived lack of respect he receives from fans and even media members who understate his accomplishments as an all-time great. On the other hand, a fighter like Conor McGregor can never be considered underrated by any standard. That's because the Irishman has always attracted the MMA world's attention, meaning every move he makes usually gets blown out of proportion. If anything, he's a bit overrated through no fault of his own, since his loss to Khabib at UFC 229. His aura of invincibility has been shattered, and fans were left wondering how good he really is inside the cage. But now that McGregor has been in our lives for more than 8 years now, have you ever wondered if we as UFC fans have been appreciative enough of the former two-weight champion? It may sound ridiculous at first to think that McGregor, despite being the most popular and highest paid athlete on the UFC roster, is still somewhat underappreciated. But when you think about it, his contributions to the sport is unprecedented, and no fighter even comes close to equaling what he has brought to the table. McGregor's longtime coach John Kavanagh once tweeted, "I've had a few UFC fighters pull me aside fight week and say something along the lines of, 'I might not like your boy, but we should all be sending him 5%. He's changed the game for all of us.'" The sentiment rings true when McGregor's role in the UFC growth, both in popularity and wealth, is taken into consideration. The UFC, no doubt, was already on its way up before McGregor showed up. However, it's highly unlikely that the promotion is the combat sports juggernaut that it is today without the help of a certain Irishman. The UFC's revenue stream has only gotten better and better every single year since McGregor emerged as the face of the company. From 2016 to 2021, the UFC made an estimated $314 million increase in revenue. Before that, the UFC only made incremental gains and even suffered a slight dip between 2013 and 2014. So what exactly happened in 2016? Simply put, Conor McGregor happened. 2016 was McGregor's most active year in his UFC career. This is when he competed in a pair of high-profile grudge matches against Nate Diaz, as well as a monumental lightweight clash against Eddie Alvarez at UFC 205, where he became the first champ in UFC history. To put that into perspective, not even the so-called golden years of the UFC have seen that kind of growth. To many, 2011 to 2013 was the pinnacle of the sport's success, as those were the years when John Jones, Anderson Silva, and Georges St. Pierre were all champions in their respective weight divisions. However, the efforts of these three legends combined weren't as impactful as McGregor's contributions. Back then, ESPN, the broadcast partner of the UFC, was still reluctant to cover the sport. But now, the UFC is front and center of talk shows like SportsCenter, First Take, The Undisputed, The Herd, and many more. Numerous sites dedicated to covering MMA have also sprouted, and we can largely attribute that to McGregor bringing in millions of new fans into the fold. McGregor's indelible mark on the sport is also evident when it comes to the pay-per-view sales. All 5 of the highest-selling UFC pay-per-views have the Irishman as the headliner. Khabib vs. McGregor at UFC 229 is the #1 highest-selling pay-per-view, an estimate of 2.2 million buys. Meanwhile, McGregor's rematch and the trilogy bout with Dustin Poirier sit at the 2nd and 3rd spots. The pair of 2021 clashes reportedly generated 1.8 million and 1.6 million pay-per-view buys respectively. Number 4 on the list is the sequel of the McGregor vs. Diaz rivalry, which raked in 1.6 million buys. The top 5 is rounded out by McGregor's return fight against Donald Cowboy Cerrone at UFC 246, an event with 1.3 million buys. There was also the Money Fight, which was McGregor's foray into pro boxing against undefeated icon Floyd Mayweather in 2017. The event is the 2nd highest selling pay-per-view in boxing history, only behind Mayweather vs. Manny Pacquiao. The fight itself may have ended badly for McGregor, but it has brought more mainstream attention to MMA than ever before. Again, that's the McGregor magic at work. When everything is taken into consideration, it's no surprise that fighters would rather take lucrative McGregor fights rather than pursue a UFC title. Dustin Poirier even admitted to doing so. Meanwhile, reigning lightweight champion Charles Oliveira made it clear that he'll let McGregor cut in line for a title shot, despite the Irishman's 2 straight TKO losses. Right now, though, McGregor is faced with a challenging road ahead. After suffering a freak injury at UFC 264, it remains to be seen whether he could come back to the McGregor of old. Of course, that's a question that can only be answered when he eventually returns to the octagon. Love him or hate him, it's undeniable that McGregor is one of the most important fighters in the history of the sport. That said, we may want to take a step back, enjoy whatever time we have left with him, and give the man his flowers while he's still here. And that would be it for our video. Feel free to like and share if you enjoy our content. Let us know what you think in the comments section. And, as always, don't forget to subscribe to Sportskeeda MMA on all of our social media platforms.